Okey, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera pada abangku-abangku yang dikasihi selalu. Apa khabar semua? Harap semua okey lah, steady lah. Okey, sebenarnya dah lama dah saya nak buat konten pasal ni mengenai rahsia di sebalik nombor-nombor model pada setiap gitar keluaran Ibanez kan. Jadi yang sekarang ni saya cerita adalah model yang memang origin daripada Japan kan. Maknanya dia punya model tu memang first dia keluar dekat Japan dulu kan. Daripada awal kewujudan dia tahun 1980-an macam tu. Ada banyak juga customer yang datang kedai saya ni dan hantar gitar Ibanez. Rata-ratanya memang peminat gitar Ibanez ni. Jadi diorang ni tanya saya lah kan, bang apa nombor 370 tu kan, apa 350 kan, macam 370 AHMZ tu apa, nak tanya kan. Okay, ada yang saya dah terangkan pada on the spot tu, ada yang saya dah terangkan. Tapi saya rasa macam saya sekarang ni pun tengah orang kata apa, tengah bercuti jugalah kan, tengah relax kan. Dalam lagi 2 jam 3 jam macam tu saya nak sambung kerja balik. Jadi saya nak buat lah entry pasal ni. Jadi saya berharap lah konten yang saya share ni sedikit sebanyak dapat berbantu lah pada sahabat-sahabat yang mungkin dah tahu ataupun yang mungkin belum tahu kan. So yang mana dah tahu tu, yang memang orang kata apa, hardcore Ibanez punya model peminat kan, peminat Ibanez tu. So mungkin diorang dah tahulah tapi golongan ni dia tak banyak kan. Jadi saya dah lama dah tengok dekat satu channel YouTube ni. So channel YouTube ni, video yang saya nak share ni yang dikongsi lah daripada YouTube yang ini, Craven ni. So Craven ni dia ada 1.2k subscriber lah kan. So banyak gak dia punya konten dia yang bagus-bagus lah. Kalau kita tengok dia ada tips, dia share dia punya koleksi Ibanez. So macam mana apa nama ni, synchronization antara 7 string gitar dengan bass, macam mana nak main note dia, basic introduction tentang gitar yang 7 tali. Banyak lah. Jadi saya share kali ni adalah berkenaan dengan rahsia di sebalik nombor-nombor model siri Ibanez ni. Okay, jadi diharapkan kita sama-sama belajar kan, dapat memantapkan lagi kita punya ilmu pengetahuan. Walaupun mungkin ia sekadar ilmu pengetahuan am kan, tapi sekurang-kurangnya kita tahu benda tu, kenapa benda tu jadi macam tu. Sebab kita main gitar kan, jadi kena tahulah sikit sebanyak tu apa nombor dia kan. Dan saya ada pernah terbaca lah artikel, saya tak ingat website mana, nombor-nombor siri Ibanez ni yang Ibanez create ni, dia punya sistem nombor tu diikuti oleh jenama-jenama yang lain juga, tapi dia tukar sikit lah kan, dia tukar sikit. Jadi okay, so dah sampai masa saya nak start introduction tentang model gitar ni, nombor-nombor ni. So kita layan dulu. So video ni agak panjang, dia dalam 34 minit kan. Tak apalah, kita layan je lah kan. Alright. So bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Hello everybody, and thanks for checking out my video. Have you ever been shopping online for Ibanez guitars and found yourself wondering, first of all, the information apply to specific signature models? Those are kind of in a world on their own. Shopping online for Ibanez guitars and found yourself wondering, what the heck are all those letters and numbers supposed to mean? Well, you're not alone. Hopefully what I can do in this video for you is help you understand this a little bit better. And before we get started, there's a few things that we just need to go over real quick. First of all, the information in this video does not apply to specific signature models. Those are kind of in a world on their own. Secondly, keep in mind Ibanez has changed their numbering system several times over the years, which leads to a lot of confusion. We'll be going over a little bit of this in the video later on. Also keep in mind there will be many exceptions, far too many for me to cover in this video, so there's no possible way I can cover it.
Right. Sebelum kita lanjut, saya just nak elaborate sikit nak rungkaikan sikit lah apa yang orang ni cuba nak beritahu kat kita kan. So dekat sini dia kata does not apply to signature model. So signature model ni macam contoh Ibanez, Jam, Steve Vai ke, ataupun yang mana yang pakai Ibanez kan, Kiko Lorero ke apa semua tu. So benda tu tak tertakluk pada apa yang dia beritahu kat sini, nombor tu dia tak tertakluk pada signature model tu. Pasal yang ni adalah standard model. Nombor yang dia beritahu ni adalah standard model. Macam RG Deluxe kan, macam-macam lah. Prestige, Premium, yang macam tu. Dia bagi tahu model ni adalah nombor tu adalah untuk model macam tu. Lepas tu kedua dia nak beritahu kat sini Ibanez dia dah tukar number system dia. Dia maknanya dia tak tertakluk pada satu situasi dia mengikut situasi semasa kan. Maknanya kalau dia ada inovasi yang terbaru, maybe spec yang terbaru ke apa, so nombor tu berubah. Jadi apa yang dia cerita kat sini adalah basic number. So yang ketiga dia kata there will be many exceptions, too many to cover. Jadi maknanya dia terlalu banyak, model Ibanez terlalu banyak. Jadi tak mungkin dia nak cerita semua model. Jadi dia cerita kat sini adalah model yang biasa kita pakai yang sekarang ni kan. Video will focus mainly on RG standard Prestige series. Yang ni yang saya cakap tadi tu. So dia kata lagi other lines S series premium will follow similar guidelines. Maknanya dia nak beritahu kat sini selain daripada RG, so Ibanez S series ataupun premium, so dia akan follow basic number ni. Maknanya number yang sistem ni dia follow S series dengan premium. So yang lain-lain tu tak termasuk dalam ni. So yang ini dia kata ini adalah guideline yang general. So not possibly to cover every variation. Maknanya benda ni tak semestinya tertakluk pada satu-satu version keluaran Gitar2. So maybe dia yang dia sebut ni Gitar2 dah discontinued. So maybe dia dah ada model yang terbaru, body yang sama, spek yang lain. So nombor dia lain. Tapi dia adalah sambungan daripada model yang dah discontinued tu. Alright, kita sambung
Every possible variation and exception. Just know that there are going to be exceptions to the rule. Next, this video we're going to focus mainly on the RG series, particularly the standard and prestige series of the RG line. That's primarily because those are the most common guitars that most people usually look for, and that's the most common ones you're probably going to come across online when you're looking for guitars. And it's one of the easier ones to kind of keep track of and follow. Other lines such as the S series or the premium line will follow similar guidelines, but keep in mind there's going to be some variations possibly in the numbering system that don't quite line up with what we're going to explain in the RG series here. So just another thing to bear in mind. And finally, just remember to use this as a general guide. It's just simply not possible to cover every single variation of model number system that Ibanez has used over the years. It would literally probably take several hours to go over all of that and still probably not have all of the information. Okay, so with all that out the way, where do we start? Well, let's start at the beginning. 1987,
Steve Vai.
And Ibanez teams up with Steve Vai to create his signature guitar, the now iconic
Gitar Legend
Gem
ni 777 ni.
777. Now, why did Steve Vai pick the number 777? Well, long story short, Steve Vai likes the number 7, but that's not the important part right here.
Dia kata kat sini so saya ulang balik ni sebab apa? Sebab takut nanti ada mungkin kawan-kawan kita yang tak faham bahasa Inggeris so saya terjemahkan sikit-sikit lah So dia kata 777 ni kenapa nombor dia 777? So dia kata senang je, Steve Vai suka nombor tu. Kenapa dia letak 777 dia je yang tahu. Alright.
The important thing is that the same year in 1987, Ibanez liked this new design so much that they wanted to release a non-signature version of the Gem, something a little stripped down with just not all of the Steve Vai embellishments on it. That gave birth to the RG 550, which is what started the modern RG series as we know it today. So
So dia untuk yang ini So dia buat 777 tu, Steve Vai tu sebagai dia punya pemula lah untuk pattern gitar macam ni, RG777 RG pula Jam 777 ni. So daripada Steve Vai punya apa yang Steve Vai signature tu, gitar tu, so wujudlah gitar yang RG570, 560, 550 yang mana ia bukan signature model. Maknanya yang ini adalah gitar yang standard model. Sebab tu dia gunakan angka RG570, 560 dan 550. Yang ini, yang atas ni kan. Sekejap. Yang atas ni kan. Yang ini. Dia gunakan tu. So RG tu adalah short form kepada Roadstar gitar. Roadstar gitar ni kalau kita tengok dekat kamus, istilah tu tak ada. Tak wujud pun Roadstar tu. And dia yang wujud tu road, lepas tu jarak star. Yang tu ada. Tapi untuk Roadstar dia sambung tu tak ada. Macam ini dia Roadstar tulisan sambung kan. Ada ayat tu bersambung. Maknanya dia adalah satu perkataan yang difabrikasikan. Maknanya itulah jenama gitar tu Roadstar. So disikatkan dia jadi RG. Okey, kita sambung.
So we're gonna start here with the RG550. It's as good a place as any to start.
Ni favorite ni.
RG550. Now, the RG stands for Roadstar Guitar. This was originally part of the Roadstar guitar line, and then the body got reshaped into the body shape that you see here. So RG literally means Roadstar Guitar. And in this case, in the model number, what we're looking at is RG is describing the body shape of the guitar. So an RG guitar will have this body shape. In a similar fashion, the S series, the S stands.
Okay, sebelum kita lanjut lagi, dia kata kat sini nama body tu dipatternkan atas nama Roadstar ataupun RG. Maknanya gitar tu, body tu dia patternkan. Senang cakap, gitar ni dia hak dia lah, dia punya pattern tu milik Ibanez lah. So orang lain tak boleh nak tiru kan. Sebab tu nama dia RG. Kita nak patternkan sesuatu barang tu, benda tu kena ada nama. Okay, so terus
For Saber series, and which is a thin line guitar, and so an S series guitar
S series
will
tu
have
Saber,
the S
Saber series
thin line S series body shape. So there's
body shape.
the first part of the equation here. Now, let's move on to the actual model number itself. First of all, the first number in the RG550. The first number, and this one is 5, so it's part of the 500 series. This is the model series. 500, why did Ibanez pick 500 for this particular line? I have no idea. I don't know if anybody knows that answer, to be honest with you.
Okay, so dia kata kat sini RG yang pertama standard model adalah RG550. So dia ambil angka yang 500 500 series ni. 500 series ni. So kenapa Ibanez memulakan angka 500 ni? Itu diorang je yang tahu. Kita sebagai pengguna ni kita tak tahu kan, kita follow je lah. So diorang yang sebagai merangka sistem number model ni. So dia ambil 500 ni. Tapi kalau ikut logik, pada saya mungkin dia nak benda tu 500 tu senang, 550, 650, 750 ataupun 500 tu dia punya benchmark. Dia punya benchmark. Dia punya apa nama? Benchmark kepada angka untuk model yang seterusnya.
But they chose 500 for their kind of their baseline series. So this was going to be their baseline series that they started from. These were made in Japan, right alongside the Ibanez Gems. I'm assuming they wanted a number lower than the 700s because Steve Vai had chose the number 7s. Other than that, I really don't have a definitive answer as to why they picked 500, but that's what they chose. They chose 500. I guess they figured it's a good middle of the road number to go with.
Okay, yang ni dia kata untuk gitar tu dia produce untuk Steve Vai. So dia tanya Steve Vai, gitar ni kena letak angka apa kan. So Steve Vai memilih angka 777. Okay, jadi 777 tu daripada higher numbers tu, so Ibanez dia ambil angka paling rendah 500. Maknanya tengah-tengah antara, maybe lah ni saya punya pandangan lah, 500 dia ambil tengah-tengah antara 1000 dengan 100. Dia ambil tengah-tengah 500 tu kan. So 777 tu adalah angka yang paling tinggi Maknanya untuk signature model dia kena tinggi daripada yang standard model. So dia ambil 500 tu sebagai dia punya baseline angka tu.
In addition to that, you will also see different numbered series. So you'll see a 700 series, a 400 series, and then later on they would continue to expand those. Now, what does that mean? In the late 80s and early 90s, the 700 series were basically the exact same thing as the 500 series, except they had a few extra embellishments. You had binding on the necks, you had different inlays, possibly different pickups. Other than that, they're basically the same guitar.
Alright. So dekat sini dia cuba nak beritahu kita. Okay, dekat sini kita ada 3 line gitar, satu 700 series, satu 500 series, satu 400 series. Jadi daripada 500 series tu, 500 series tu dia baseline dia tengah-tengah. So kalau atas higher ataupun high end dia 700 series. So kalau lower daripada 500 series tu dia letak 400 series. So apa beza dia? Dia kata kat sini kalau yang 7 series ni dia ada binding, dia punya inlay pun lain, lepas tu dia punya fretboard kayu lain, dia punya bridge pun lain. Jadi dia punya pickup pun tak sama. Dia punya pickup dia. Okay, so turun sikit dia kepada 500 series. Jadi yang ini dia pakai maple fretboard, lepas tu dia punya pickup dia lain, spek dia lain kan. Lepas tu dia punya bridge pun lain. Tapi kalau tengok kat gambar ni, bridge dia nampak macam sama. Saya pun terlupa kan. Saya rasa ni sama ni. Dia pakai original H original. Ini dia pakai H original. Actually H original ni adalah kesinambungan daripada flat rose juga kan. Masa tu H0302 tu belum ada. Jadi dia buat yang ini. Dia buat yang higher spec kan. So yang 400 series ni, so dia punya spec dia lagi lower daripada dua ni. So yang 400 series ni dia pakai kayu, yang ini rosewood. Lepas tu dia punya bridge dia yang ni kalau tidak, yang ni bridge lain lah, saya tak pasti, tak nampak pula gambar dia apa, kena check dekat Google lah dia punya spec. So dia punya inlay single dot ni macam ni, dan pickup dia lain. Pickup dia lain. Yang lain semua sama, headstock, body, pickguard, semua sama. Cuma yang berbeza dia punya spek kayu dia. Sebab itulah dia ambil 500 series ni sebagai benchmark ataupun baseline. So kalau gitar mahal, higher spec 700 series, yang lower spec 400 series. Alright, kita sambung.
The 400 series was a slightly cheaper version of the 500 series. Now the 400 series kind of bounced around a little bit later on. Originally they were made in Japan right alongside the 700s and the 500s, but as we get on down the road they would start seeing production move to different countries, and you would see just cheaper features on them, usually cheaper hardware, cheaper pickups, so kind of a budget version of what the 500 series would be.
Okay, so dekat sini dia kata untuk yang RG450 ni, dia adalah version yang cheaper daripada dua ni, untuk pasaran luar daripada diorang, daripada Japan lah kan, untuk pasaran yang lower versionnya. So dia ambil yang 400 series. Sebab tu lah kalau kita tengok gitar ni nampak macam sama, tapi dia punya series dia tak sama. Yang ni lain, ni lain, yang ni pun lain. Body semua sama. Cuma body dia, bentuk dia sama, tapi yang ni kayu lain. Ni kayu lain, ni kayu lain. Alright. So kita sambung balik.
But going forward with the model numbers, the rest of the model numbering system that we're about to get into, they all still follow the same basic numbering system. But when you see the 700, 500, and 400 series, that's kind of what we're looking at here. Now, it's important to note, again, they've changed their numbering system many times over the years. The current 700s that you'll see, and we'll get into this again a little bit later, is not the same as the old RG750 that we have on the screen right now. Premium models have taken on some different numbering systems, and the new prestige models have taken on some new numbering systems. So this is going to apply right now, where we're at right now in the video. This will apply to...
Okay, sekarang ni dia kata untuk yang premium prestige series ni, okay, macam yang ini, dia main numbering dia dah lain dah. Untuk Prestige series tu tadi kita 550 dan 750. Sekarang ni kita cerita yang premium series 750 700 series tu dia dah ada 760, 760, 770 yang ini kan. So yang ni dia pakai pickup lain. IBZ USA F4, ni IBZ USA F2. Yang ini lain pula. Dia punya pickup dia tu. So dekat sini dia ada tulis dekat katalog ni, DRG 750 series features DiMaggio IBZ USA pickups is a distinctive 24 fret sharp tooth inlay. So yang ni sharp tooth inlay ni. So dia start daripada RG 750 ni. Right. So bila ada gitar 760, 770, so dia punya spek tu dah lain tapi still kelompok yang sama. Cuma maybe dia ada upgrade daripada segi pickup dia. Pickup. So yang ini Steve Bliss ni yang pakai gitar ni. Right. So next. Yang ni ada satu lagi. Yang ujung ni dia tulis sini RG 770 FM. So dia merujuk kat sini RG 770 FM ni flame maple. So body dia flame maple 2 ni. Yang ini kesemua ni adalah berasal origin daripada Japan. Japan yang buat benda ni. Okay, so next
system. So this is going to apply right now, where we're at right now in the video. This will apply to late 80s and through the 90s. So let's move to the next set of numbers. We now have the body style, we now have the series number of the guitar. The next set of numbers is going to represent your pickup configuration. Now there are some exceptions to these, but in general this is what you're going to be looking at. If there's a 1 here, which would represent like a 10, you're looking at just a single humbucker. That's it. If you're looking at a 3, where it would be a 30, then you're looking at possibly a triple single coil or 2 humbuckers, both of which would have a pick guard with them. Now these two are not common. These are very, very rare to find these particular pickup configurations on an Ibanez RG. They're out there, but they're extremely rare, extremely hard to find. They didn't make them very often, but I'm including them here just for the sake of inclusion. One of the more common ones that you'll find is 20. 20 represents 2 humbuckers with no pick guard. There's also a 40, which is a humbucker single with a pick guard. Again, 40 is not very common. 40, 30, and 10s you won't see very often. So we'll move on to the more common ones. These can be the 4 most common ones that you'll come across. The 20, which we just covered. The 50 from the RG550 that we just looked at is humbucker, single humbucker with a pick guard, which happens to be the exact same layout as the Ibanez Gem. Remember, the RG550 was basically a stripped down version of the Gem, so it shares the same features. That's why you have the humbucker, single humbucker with a pick guard. Next you'll see the number 60. 60 represents a humbucker single with no pick guard. And finally we have a 70, which will be a humbucker single humbucker, just like the 50, but this time no pick guard on it. So these are your most 4 common pickup configurations that you'll find among the RG line. These 4 guitars are identical to each other in terms of specs, what body they're made out of, the tremolo that they're using, the bridge, even the pickups, the neck shape, the dimensions of the neck. All of these are identical to each other. The only exception is the pickup configurations between these 4 models. Now,
okay, sebelum kita lanjut lagi, so secara ringkas saya nak beritahu kat sini, khusus buat sahabat-sahabat yang yang baru nak kenal gitar ni ke apa ke kan. Okay. So dekat sini kalau kita tengok angka 20, 50, 60, 70. Okay, yang kosong ni yang ujung sekali lah. Okay, yang kosong ni. Okay, yang 2 ni dekat tengah ni. So yang tengah ni mewakili pickup spec. So kalau 2 dekat sini maknanya 520 lah. So kalau 520, RG 520, so pickup tu HH, macam ni 520, right. So kalau 550, ini lah 550, so HSH with pick guard. So 550 yang ini, humbucker, single humbucker dengan pick guard, right. So macam itulah yang seterusnya. Right, kesimpulan dia Okay, kita sambung.
I know some of you are going to be looking at this and going, well, wait a minute, the 550 has a maple fretboard and the others don't. Well, yes, this is true. Most RG 550s have a maple neck because, remember, the original gems, when they first came out, those first 3 original gems all had maple necks. So the 550 also came with a maple neck because it was copying that gem model. Later on, as they developed the other models, the 570, the 560, the 520, they went with...
Okay, sekejap. Saya terlupa nak beritahu. Tadi dia ada mention. Dia kata RG 550, 650, 750 tu, selain daripada perbezaan spek dia, dia punya neck shape pun berbeza. Dia punya, tadi dia disebut dia punya neck shape dia pun berbeza, neck profile dia.
the more traditional rosewood, which is what Ibanez usually puts on the guitars. However, the 550 also came with a rosewood fretboard as well, so it does have.
Jadi dekat sini dia kata HSS tadi RG550 ni kan, kalau kita tengok earlier yang dia tunjuk tadi tu, dia pakai fretboard maple kan, tapi ada juga RG550 yang pakai rosewood fretboard macam ni. Maknanya number tu dia tak mewakili hanya satu-satu benda je, dia maybe berubah tapi menggunakan satu number system. Alright, so next,
A rosewood fretboard variation. They're not as common as the maples, but they are out there. So when you're looking at these four guitars, specs are the same, assuming that they're all made within the same year. Now, of course, as years go by, they'll make changes to a certain model. So an RG550 from one year might have a different tremolo than an RG550 from a different year. But assuming these are all four from the same year, then you're looking at the exact same guitar, simply different pickup configurations. Now we're going to move to the last number in the model number set. We have a 0 here on the 550. 0 is usually the standard series model. Usually that means it's equipped with a tremolo, a floating tremolo of some sort. The other number you may see there is a 1. If you have a 1 here, then all that means is it's the exact same guitar except it has a fixed bridge. An example would be the RG521, which is simply an RG520 with a fixed bridge. There is no other difference between the RG521 and the RG520 other than the bridge. That's it. It's the only difference. Obviously the locking nut. But now another number you may see at the end, and again this one's rare, is a 5. If you see an RG565, what this is this is an RG560, which would be humbucker single single. Remember we had that from a little while ago. But the 5 means that they've taken out the middle single coil. So the 565 is the humbucker single single, but minus the middle humbucker, so you end up with just a humbucker single.
Okay, yang ni dia nak beritahu kita angka 0 ni dekat ujung ni. Okay, tadi yang ini mewakili pickup, yang ini mewakili tremolo, bridge, jenis bridge. Kalau 0, that means equipped with tremolo. Maknanya 0 ni adalah floating bridge lah. Tak kira lah A0 ke low pro ke kan, dia macam tu lah. So kalau ada 1 ni maknanya RG551, so dia equipped with fixed bridge. Okay, macam yang dia tunjuk gambar yang sebelum ni kan, yang ini. Sekejap. Yang ini fixed bridge ni. So yang ni 521, so dia jadi equipped with fixed bridge. Tu dia. Alright. Lepas tu dia kata kat sini ada yang 5 ujung dia, maknanya 555. Ataupun ada yang 565. Tadi 6 tadi tu pickup HSS. So sekarang ni dia yang ini 565. Kenapa dia 6? Sebab dia buang middle pickup ni. So dia jadi RG565, missing single coil kat sini. So maknanya ujung dia ni dia dah jadi lain pula. Dia dah bukan bridge punya angka, dia dah jadi spec untuk HS. Dia dah jadi 2 pickup saja. Middle dia dah buang. So dia jadi RG565. Alright. Dengan reverse headstock. Ni reverse headstock ni. Okay, kita terus
5. If you see an RG565, what this is this is an RG560, which would be humbucker single single. Remember we had that from a little while ago. but the 5 means that they've taken out the middle single coil. So the 565 is the humbucker single, but minus the middle humbucker, so you end up with just a humbucker single. Again, these are fairly rare, they're not very common, but they do exist. It's another variation of the numbers that are out. Next, around 1998, Ibanez 97, 98, Ibanez introduced the RG7620. Now, you may be looking at this and going, whoa, a 7620, that must be a really high-end model. Well, the 7620 ended up being the very first RG series 7-string that Ibanez introduced. And the 7 simply means it's a 7-string. So they stuck the 7 on there to indicate it's a 7-string. The next number, the 6 in this case, would represent the series number. Now, we haven't seen a 600 series yet. We haven't seen a 600 series because there wasn't one at the time. The RG7620 was originally supposed to be called the RG7520, and in fact a lot of the very, very early models, the very first runs of them, if you take off the neck, on the inside of the neck and then the inside of the neck pocket, some of them are stamped as 7520, which is what they were originally going to be called, because it's a 7-string version of an RG520. Makes sense. You have the floating tremolo bridge, you have the 2 humbuckers, and there's no pickguard. That's a 520. These were made in Japan, by the way. For whatever reason, when the ads went to print, there was either a typo or somebody decided to change their mind at the last minute. Whatever the case may be, I honestly don't know what the reasoning for it was, but when the ads went to print, they went out printed as 7620. I don't know if it was a misprint or if someone changed their mind. Whatever the case may be, they ended up being called the 7620 officially. So the 7620 isn't. They went out printed as 76. For whatever reason, it's a 7-string version of an RG520. It makes sense. You have the floating tremolo bridge, you have the 2 humbuckers, and there's no pickguard. That's a 520. These were made in Japan, by the way. For whatever reason, when the ads went to print, there was either a typo or somebody decided to change their mind at the last minute. Whatever the case may be, I honestly don't know what the reasoning for it was, but when the ads went to print, they went out printed as 7620. I don't know if it was a misprint or if someone changed their mind. Whatever the case may be, they ended up being called the 7620 officially.
Sama ada salah technical ataupun ada orang suruh tukar.
That stuck.
So dia jadi 7620.
But in essence, it's still just a 7-string version of an RG520. So try to avoid a little bit of confusion there. The next number, the 20, like we just talked about, is the pickup configuration. So you have your 2 humbuckers. And then the last number, of course, is your bridge setup like we talked about. So the 7620 has the floating bridge. They also released a 7621, which is the exact same guitar, but with a fixed bridge. Now, sometimes around 2000, but with a fixed bridge.
So yang ni dia nak beritahu kita 7620. So 7 ni mewakili 7 string. So 6 ni mewakili series number, maknanya series yang saya cakap tadi tu. 500 series, 600 series, 700 series, ada 400 series kan. So yang ni dia ambil daripada 600 series, so dia jadi 6 kat sini. Dan 2 pickup configuration, maknanya dia ada 2 pickup je kat sini. Humbucker HH without pickguard. Without pickguard. Dan bridge ni adalah dia punya tremolo floating. 0 tu floating, kalau 1 tu fixed bridge.
Now, sometimes around 2003 or so, Ibanez took all of their made in Japan modeled guitars. Now at this point, some guitars were being made in Korea, like we talked about earlier with the 400 series. The 500 series and up stayed in Japan. That was kind of their main line of guitars. Around 2003, all of their Japanese made guitars were labeled as prestige models. Now,
right, tahun 2003 prestige model. So banyaknya memang Ibanez yang keluarkan, dia tak ada OEM lagi. So banyaknya adalah prestige.
Prestige, that's a longer story, but basically prestige just boils down to, long story short, prestige means it was made in Japan at the Fujijin factory. So they redesigned the logo on
dekat
the
Fujigen.
headstock and they put Prestige on it. Other than that, it's basically the same guitar. The only difference from a non-Prestige Japanese model in 2002 compared to a Prestige model of the same guitar in 2003 would be the bridge. I think they switched to the Edge Pro tremolo. Other than that, specs are pretty much the same for the most part. Now, with this, the model numbers changed. The Prestige models added a 1 to the existing model number. So what that means for a guitar like the RG570 is that it became an RG1570. As you can see, it's basically the exact same guitar, the only difference being they added the 1 with the new logo on it. So the 1 represents Prestige, and the 570 of course represents it.
Okay, yang ini dia nak beritahu kita. So asalnya RG570 ni, okay, kita tahu RG570 ni kan. So dekat sini headstock ni dia tak ada logo Prestige. Right. Selepas tahun 2003, Ibanez patentkan gitar 570 ni sebagai Prestige. So dia tambah angka 1 kat depan. So dia jadilah dia Prestige with Prestige logo dekat dia punya headstock. Right, sambung.
It's a 570 variant or descendant, however you want to call it. You saw the same thing happen with the RG550, which got converted to the RG1550, and then you have the RG520, which got converted to the RG1520. So these are the variations. They're basically the same guitars. When you're looking for an old RG550,
right,
and you come,
so dia kata sini for 2003, maknanya manufacturing tahun 2003 dekat Fujigen, Japan. The RG line, the unchallenged standard in hard and heavy rock guitars gets massive infusion of high-tech hardware and upgrades. Okay, maknanya untuk tahun 2003 ni diorang dah start dah buat inovasi, buat spec, buat hardware untuk memenuhi pasaran hardware, pasaran music, mana heavy rock masa tu tengah naik kan. So diorang invented benda tu. Yang apa yang ada dekat gitar ni adalah based on permintaan, demand pasaran, yang mana masa tu music rock tengah ni kan, tengah hot masa tu kan. So dia kata kat sini, saya baca ni sebab takut sahabat-sahabat tak nampak kan, sebab tulisan tu kecil. Kalau dekat info, kalau dekat laptop dia nampak. So dia kata our classic RG550 and 570 models, now RG1550 and RG1570 reach new level of detail with the addition of Prestige next and the new H Pro. Okay, yang ni dia nak beritahu kita tahun 2003 tu lah H Pro tu diperkenalkan, orang invented. So memang power lah. Bridge tu pun saya dah pakai, bukan saya punya lah, gitar customer kan, saya dah try, memang best lah, memang terbaik lah dia punya bridge tu. So dekat sini dia ada H Pro, lepas tu dia ada H Pro 2 tremolo, lepas tu dia kata 2003 yang dekat sini, saya baca kat sini sekarang ni. Yang dia kata 2003 lineup offers every kind of instrument needed by the heavy rocker. 6 and 7 string models, net through and bolt-on access. Maknanya kat sini diorang dah start invented yang bolt-on dan yang jenis net through body kat sini. So double locking and standard trams and equally wide range of prices. Maknanya dia provide benda tu based on demand pasaran muzik yang tengah hot masa tu. So dia buat dalam pelbagai variasi. So daripada situlah dia ada H Pro, dia ada A0, dia maknanya daripada higher version sampai ke lower version. Daripada highest price, highest level sampai lower level, untuk pelbagai peringkat pasaran. Right, kita sambung.
come across an RG1550, if you want to know what the difference is, there you go. It's basically the same guitar. Now there was also a few other variations in the Prestige line where you had a 2 instead of a 1, and basically the 2 was just a slightly enhanced version where it had maybe different inlays, like this version, which is the 2570. It's still the 570.
Yang ada ke satu semua dah ada Prestige dekat dia punya headstock.
So just very slight differences there. Basically the same guitar, but a little bit kind of a little bit nicer version, almost like a deluxe version of the 1570. Now going back to the RG7620, remember this was a 7-string, and Prestige added a 1 to the existing model number, but the 7620 already had 4 numbers in it. So what did they do to the 7620 to convert it over to the Prestige line? 7620 became the 1527. Now, how did that happen? You're looking at these numbers, and these numbers have absolutely nothing in common with each other, right? Well, here's how it breaks down. In the new Prestige numbering system, the 1 represents that as a part of the Prestige line. The 5 represents the series number, just like we talked about earlier. So this is part of the 500 series. Remember, the 7620 was originally supposed to be a 500 series 7 string. The 2.
Okay, sebelum kita lanjut lagi, secara ringkas kat sini, bila dia dah wujudkan Ibanez Prestige, right? So satu ni dia dah mewakili Prestige. Jadi daripada Prestige tu dia dah ada benchmark yang lagi satu. So dia daripada Prestige tu dia ada 500 series. Tadi tu RG kan, RG, yang ni dia Prestige. So Prestige tu dia dah ada sistem yang satu lagi, tapi dia sinambungan daripada RG juga. Cuma yang ini dia line untuk Prestige saja.
Represents the pickup configuration just like in the 20. This time they stuck a 7 on the end to represent that it's a 7-string version. So you would have a RG 1520 would be a 6-string 520, and the 1527 would be the 7-string 520. Now, it's important to also note that in the standard series, these were the models that were made in Korea and later on in Indonesia, models like the RG7320 and the RG7321 continued the standard model number system that they used. This extra 1 that was being added only applied to the Prestige models that were being made in Japan. So the standard series, which were being made in Korea and Indonesia, continued to use the same numbering system as from before.
Okay, tadi dia cakap, tak ingat tahun berapa tadi dia cakap, untuk model yang ini dia dah peluaskan ini pasaran dia. Yang ini dah ada buat dekat Indonesia. Maknanya dia dah start buat OEM dekat Indonesia untuk model yang Prestige yang ini.
So now that we've got the basic numbering system down, let's get into possible prefixes that could accompany the RG in front of the number. One example would be an A. An A would represent an arch top. So an RGA is an RG with an arched top. Simple. T would represent a neck through. So again, you would have an RG with that, instead of a bolt-on neck, you would have a neck through model. R could represent a reverse headstock. Then you'd see an iron label series, which is a more recent line of guitars. They use I for iron label and then another prefix letter for various other instances. In this case, IX could represent an ebony fretboard. IB would represent an iron label baritone model. IT would represent an iron label neck through model, and the IF would represent an iron label fan fret model. Now you could also see a combination of these as well. It's not always just 1 or 2 letters. You could see quite a bit of combination of letters here, depending on what features it has.
Alright.
Now,
dekat sini, dah beralih pula. Okay, dekat sini secara ringkas dia nak beritahu. Sekejap saya patah balik. Okay, dekat sini dia nak beritahu bermula daripada RG420. RG420 yang ini untuk yang pasaran Indonesia tadi tu. So yang ini kalau RG420, kalau RGA archtop, kalau RGT neck through, kalau RGR reverse headstock. Lepas tu kalau untuk iron label made in Indonesia sana, so RGIX tu dia mewakili, IX tu mewakili ebony fretboard. Lepas tu dia ada IB, RGIB. So RGIB ni dia baritone model, dia panjang sikit demi scale dia kan. So yang ini lagi dia ada IT, RGIT 20, RGIT 20 yang ini. So dia mewakili neck through body, dia tak ada bolt on. So yang last sekali RGIF, dia mewakili fan fret kan, yang multi scale tu kan. Right.
It's not always just one or two
So
letters. You
next.
can see quite a bit of combination of letters here, depending on what features it has. Now another one you might come across is
Okay, yang ni
RGD.
last saya.
This
Video
is
ni
another very
dia
popular one.
panjang
Now
lagi.
in this case,
So
the
saya
RGD
Sekejap. So saya buat part by part lah kot kan. Ini pun dah dekat setengah jam dah kan. So yang ini yang RG ni last lah. So maybe next nanti kita boleh sambung, ataupun sahabat-sahabat boleh layari lah dia punya YouTube dia tu kan. Link dia ada saya sertakan dekat ruangan description. Alright, so last kita tengok ni.
represents a completely different body style, well not completely different, but a different body style from the standard RG series. What you have with the RGD is slightly more beveled curve along the top, and the horns are kind of curved and beveled a little bit differently. It's still based off the RG model, but as you can see, there's some definite differences in the design and in the cutaways. The positioning of the switch for the pickups is completely different on this model as well. So when you see RGD, this is the body style you're looking at. The RGD will also generally follow the same numbering system rules as the regular RGs, but another significant difference that the RGD has over the regular RG series is it's a longer scaled guitar. You have 26.5 inch scale as opposed to the standard 25.5 inch scale of the regular RG. Now let's move on to the suffixes. You might see some letters at the end of.
So saya berhenti sampai sini dulu sebab video ni dia panjang lagi kan. Jadi sahabat-sahabat boleh teruskan lah kalau nak review dia punya, nak mendalami lagi tentang apa yang dia cakap pasal number system model-model Ibanez ni. So boleh layari lah dia punya YouTube dia tu. Jadi kesimpulannya saya cubalah berkongsi, kita sama-sama belajar kan. Benda ilmu ni kalau kita belajar memang sampai bila pun tak habis bang kan. Maybe benda ni tak penting bagi setengah orang, tapi pada saya penting, pada diri saya lah penting, pasal saya bekerja dalam bidang ni, saya buat repair gitar dan sebagainya, dan begitu juga pada sahabat-sahabat kan. So kalau macam tak tahu nak beli gitar apa ke, model apa yang sesuai kan, so kita boleh rujuk pada dia punya angka dia tu, nombor dia tu, nombor model tu. So diharapkan daripada video ni boleh jadi rujukan kan. Maknanya kita boleh tahu tremolo tu nombor dia berapa. Kalau RG ni nombor dia macam ni, apa spek yang dia pakai, ada pigat ke tak ada pigat, berapa humbucker, berapa single coil, dia punya position selector, dia punya inlay, dia punya fretboard kayu, dia punya body, dia macam itulah. Tapi kesimpulannya dia berpunca daripada Ibanez Jam 777 tadi tu. Itu induk dia yang mengeluarkan body yang macam tu. So Ibanez Jam tu, so daripada situlah kesinambungannya dia pattern jenis roadstar gitar ataupun RG tadi tu. So yang 77 tadi itulah dia punya induk dia tu, pemula pada pada inovasi yang kita pakai sekarang kan. Okeylah, saya berhenti sampai sini je dulu pada episod kali ini. Diharapkan bermanfaat buat semua. Hingga kita berjumpa lagi dalam episod yang akan datang. Sekian, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum.